Starting the analysis of game two, I'm going to go ahead and say I flipped the color because I'm hopeful that the American player is going to pull this match out. As the games are still going, I'm very, very hopeful because anything like a resurgence in chess when Fischer won the World Championship in '72. I mean, to put it in perspective, and I'm going to be rough with my estimates with numbers here. In 1968, there were like 10,000 members in the United States Chess Federation. But by 1975, there were 80,000. And that was from the attention chess got from Fischer winning the World Championship. Now in modern day media, it's sensationalized and we're not going to talk about things for more than a couple days. But if we can get any smidgen of play and positive attention on chess, that'd be amazing. So I'm all for Caruana winning. But honestly, from a personal desire, I want Carlsen to lose. Not because I'm not a big fan of Carlsen, I'm a huge fan of Carlsen. I want him to lose because it'll push him to the next level of his game, making him one of the greatest players of all time, which he already is, but you want to be the best. I want to see that, like, that oomph, that I want 2,900 Carlsen. That's a beast. So, let's go ahead and get started. And as seen in a lot of World Championship matches, we have your Queen's Gambit decline. And Carlsen goes for a line that's in vogue, Bishop F4, and C5, the main line. And the typical Knight BD7 is normally the way players play this position. And this was seen in the both, I believe, Carlsen Anad World Championship matches, where you end up in these types of scenarios that is like C5 is played, and both sides are trying to chop this down. You eventually get to play Bishop A6 to trade off your bishop, and it's an equalish game where White has a little bit extra play. There's some interesting stuff there. But Caruana decides he's not having any of that, and we end up in this position. And after Knight C6, A3, Queen A5, I can definitely think of at least one Kasparov game off the top of my head where Castle Queenside is played, and this has definitely been worked out by these top guys. It's some interesting stuff if you like these positions, but I mean, it should be noted as well that this stuff shouldn't bother Black at all when you're getting these C takes D positions. And I'll let you look at the database more in depth for that stuff. So after Queen C2, Knight C6, A3, Queen A5, Rook D1. And now this was the major headway point where in the press conference, Magnus said after this move was played, he didn't feel comfortable. And I think that says a lot in this type of match, that if you can even get that sliver of psychological edge when you're playing with the black pieces, it's enough to unnerve your opponent. You're in good shape. So Rook D8. And moves that have been played here in the past, like Rook E8, is much more normal, with the main line being Knight D2 and E5. So this type of stuff is the main idea with like Queen C1, and you're doubling down, and you see these types of repetitions. And this was a game between So Nakamura in Paris of this year. So 2018 for posterity. Rook D8 was played in the game, and this is the new. So Bishop E2. And again, Knight D2 would be the critical try, but I think Magnus wasn't going to go into the nasty stuff here because he felt that clearly if Rook E8 is the main move and Rook D8 was played and you felt uncomfortable about it, you're not going to go into the most critical continuation because you know you're in your opponent's home cooking. So he plays a normal move, doesn't test Caruana's preparation here, which I think was a good decision. Then Knight E4, which is a novelty in the position. Black takes his chance since Bishop E2 is played in order to compromise White's queenside structure. So after castles, we mess up the pawn some and H6. And it should be noted that about this point in game 1, Caruana was already down like 30 minutes by like move 10 with white. But in this game, he was playing fast and confident, which bodes very well for your chances if you can play this type of chess with black. And that really suggests that he was still in his preparation when you're just like banging out moves like this. A4, 97. And also banged out, and it's probably still prep. So 95. And according to Shanklin, he says Magnus is asking for trouble with this move, but if he plays accurately, he's not going to be any real danger. Rook b1 was what the computer was recommending, followed by if black goes bishop d7, then 95. And this looks pretty equal. Yeah. So this was probably the better way to go. Just bail out, take your half point. But Magnus goes with 95. Bishop d6. It's the most principal move as it's forcing in the position. CD, knight d. Of course not e takes d. I mean, I was thinking this during the game to be able to potentially play bishop f5, but you're just looking for trouble, giving yourself an isolated pawn for no necessary reason. And here was an interesting point in the game. And this is where you pause your videos and try to figure out what you would do in this position. And if I'm telling you to pause, it typically means it's a tactical idea. So go ahead and see if you can find it. All right, we're back looking at it. Now in the game, Magnus played bishop f3, which makes a lot of sense because you have the bad quote-unquote French bishop on c8 that's got some difficulties getting out. By playing a move like bishop f3, we're putting some pressure along the wrong diagonal. We're looking at moves like rook b1 next, queen b3, and, you know, just trying to hold down the position. So this is in the style of Magnus and the way he would typically play. But the move that I was hoping you'd find is knight takes f7. White could have played this move, and it certainly wouldn't have changed the result, in my opinion, but it would have set the tone for more uncompromising play. So say, for instance, if king takes f7, bishop takes, rook takes, check, e4, and this gets interesting. The position is dynamically balanced, and I mean, it's one of those questions, who do you feel more comfortable with here? And if the knight and bishop can coordinate, we like the knight and bishop, 2-for-1 special. But I don't know. Doesn't feel the same as the main game goes. So bishop f3, grab, 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 and we've defined the structure. And black really isn't developed enough with his issues to take advantage of the crippled pawn structure. And this is where you see the quick development. If black just goes bishop d7, a draw is going to happen pretty quick here. So clearly black was in the mood to test the position some. So bishop d7, a5, and this move is definitely okay in hindsight, but I remember thinking during the game, I'm like, okay, so pretty much the only move is queen d4, and that one made a lot of sense to me because it's attacking the pawn and it's holding every single one of your weaknesses. And then probably a move like b6, then a5, and that's what I was seeing making a lot of sense. But if a5 immediately and bishop c6, like I was initially thinking queen c4 to put some pressure here and see where we're at with the position. But Magnus, of course, having a calculation ability far beyond most humans, decides to go for this ending, and this is dead equal. King f8, king e8, and the ending can be a bit dangerous for white because of the pawns being so close to the black king that if they start dropping, you get in the deep doo-doo. So a6, b6, c5, excellent move. Now, you gotta go king d7. If black plays b5, for instance, it's not gonna feel good. So king d7, cb, ab, a7, and now you gotta play that to prevent rook b7 check. And black's gonna win the d6 pawn, and the position's dead drawn. Like the doubled f pawns, like aren't hurting white in this position because you're gonna have to make trades to make progress, and he's gonna get rid of like his unhealthy pawn, we'll say. So after rook takes a7, king g2 was played, e5, and we're already seeing the plan with king e6, rook d7, rook takes d6. So after rook b4, f5 was played, but engine analysis showed that king d6, f4 takes, king e6 would yield better winning chances for black. This position is objectively drawn, but always when we're in these types of nothing positions, you should have the mentality of, if I've got to trade pawns, which pawns do I want to have? So here's like a critical moment. If you have these 3 pawns, and you do, and you're going to have to trade 2 of these pawns for 2 of white's in order to have 1 left, which pawn do you want left? Do you want the h pawn, the g pawn, or the f pawn? And you should answer this question without hesitation to know that in a king and rook versus king and rook endgame with a pawn, the easiest to draw is the rook. Because all I've got to do is be on the queenie square, and I can move the rook back and forth or check you. Next easiest to draw is the knight's pawn, the g pawn. Again, if I'm on the queenie square and just move the rook back and forth passive defense, that's also a draw. The hardest is with the bishop's pawn, because if you move the rook back and forth, you actually lose in that situation. You need to know the difference between Lucina and Philidor, king, rook, and pawn endgames. So definitely check out our videos where we go over that. Search it up. So in the main game, instead of king takes d6 being played, f5 was played. Then rook b6, and after king e6, I was surprised by this next move with d7, because I felt like you could just chill longer. King e6, rook b6, and here the tables have turned from the first game. You see Magnus with the extra pawn and the drawn rook and pawn in game pressing, and now we have Caruana doing it. And I honestly feel that this is mostly psychology with the 2 men. And when you got the advantage, just press a little bit. Rook b5, king f6, and the dance happens. And personally, I would have much rather have seen rook e7, and after king g3, you play f4, and you wait until the proper moment in order to dance up the board. King f4 seemed a little bit hurried. Like it's one of those, and Silman's complete endgame course in the Master chapter, he talks about the concept of cat and mouse. And with endgames, if you can do it in 2 moves or do it in 10 moves, you want to do it in 10 moves. Mostly for psychological reasons. Your opponent's sitting there going, okay, so why didn't he just do this move? And it gets him thinking about things off the board, gets him annoyed, and gives a higher chance of them making a mistake and losing a drawn ending. So king f4, some progress is being made here. Rook a5, check, rook g6, and the game doesn't last much longer here with rook g5 being played, and they decide to agree to a draw. I mean, honestly, there's not much objectively to play for, and rolling it back, that key moment was definitely with rook e7, and then you have the ability to play, king f5, g5, h5, g4, and potentially getting a situation to where the e-pawn could be good in the long term. That would have been, if he was seriously trying to win this and not just going straight for a draw, that would have been the way to do it. But of course, that ending is drawn as well. So that's game 2 of the World Championship. Join us for game 3.